So today we're going to be talking about whether or not you are actually needing to give away the equity that you're looking to offer someone when trying to raise money for your business. And we're also going to look at whether or not you have even created a business that is investable, or whether you've really just made yourself a self-employed job. It might still be a nice income stream for you, but whether or not it's going to be investable, whether or not it's going to deliver a return and the kind of things that an investor wants, maybe it isn't. And we're going to do this because over the weekend I got a business plan from a guy called Mitchell. I can't remember his second name, but Mitchell, who sent me a plan. He was looking to we're looking to raise money for a business that he's doing, where he's going to be, checking my notes. He is going to be doing carpentry, kitchen fitting, windows, doors, that kind of thing. And he was looking for the money to get that business together. And when I was reading the plan, my immediate thoughts, which obviously I conveyed to Mitchell, were that this isn't going to be a business for me. It's not something that I would find investable for me. But as I'm reading it, I think there's some fundamental issues within the business that make it uninvestable for anyone. And I also think that Mitchell could do a much better financial job for himself by not taking any investors in the first place. So I thought it was worth talking about with you guys. Morning, Oliver. Morning, Max. Thanks for joining. If you just joined, we are talking about whether or not a business is investable, whether or not it really is a business, or if it's just a potentially well-paid job for you, and also whether or not you actually need the funding in question. So, first thing that flagged up for me on Mitchell's business plan was he was looking to raise £7,500. 50% of the business. Now, before it even got any further, this was an immediate red flag for me for two reasons. One, £7,500. Now, I mean this in the nicest possible way, but if you haven't got yourself in a position where you've got £7,500 to invest in your business, then I would question whether or not you're even in a position to be wanting to, or to be able to be starting and managing a business in the first place. So, I know this may be easy for me to say, and I know when you haven't got the money, 100 quid feels like £1,000,000. And don't get me wrong, I've had times in my life where I've been there too, but £7,500. If you can't get yourself in a position to have earned that, then I would question whether you have the requisite skills to be able to run the business in the first place. And maybe you actually need to spend more time investing in yourself, learning more skills from the job that you're currently doing, and putting some more time aside to get that money together. That would be point number one. But point number two on the same matter is, is it really worth giving up? In this case, Mitchell's offering 50% of his business away. Is it really worth giving up 50% of your business for the sum of £7,500? Which, okay, it's going to differ for everybody, but that could take him 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. However long it takes him to earn. My advice to him would be, spend longer doing what you're doing, and be able to hold on to that business, so that you haven't had to give any away, or you've had to give much less of it away. That was point number one. But secondly, what Mitchell's looking to do within this business is buy leads from, that's LEADS, buy leads from online lead suppliers and convert them on the telephone, and then send out carpenters to them. So when I say online lead suppliers, he's looking to, there's some online websites, I forget the name of the ones in question that he's talking about, but these websites, people will go online searching for a plumber, searching for a carpenter, searching for somebody who wants a job, etc. So who wants a job doing. They'll put in their details, and then this website will sell these details on to people, plumbers, joiners, etc., who are looking for work. So effectively, what Mitchell's looking to do is buy the leads, convert them to a job, and then send out joiners to them. Now, in the early days, saying for the first 3 or 4 months, he's going to be the joiner that goes out there to do it. But then as time goes on, he's looking to employ joiners who he can send out there. Now, again, two issues that come up for this from me. The most important one, which is applicable to any business, is the importance of generating your own leads and controlling your own sales process and your own sales funnel. Now, again, I'm not here to disparage lead suppliers, but in a couple of the businesses I've been involved with, particularly with finance, we've tried many lead suppliers, and these guys are people who create websites, create landing pages, create polls, whatever it may be, on Google, on social media, and find ways to generate leads that they can then sell on to third parties. And invariably, the quality has always been dreadful. I'm not saying we've never got a deal out of it, but they're typically generated in a way which means that these leads are given to multiple sources. Even when they're saying a lead is exclusive to you, the reality is today's customer, today's prospect is very is very keyboard heavy on the internet, and if they're searching for whether that's a loan, whether that's for a join, or whatever it may be, once they start searching for something, they're probably not going to give up after they've entered the details once. So even if the lead supplier you're dealing with is the only person supplying that lead to you, then the reality is that potential customer has probably applied online through multiple other sources. There's going to be multiple people getting these same leads, which is going to push the conversion rate down further and further, and make it a highly competitive market. And the other issue is, if you're building up your sales through third-party lead suppliers, you haven't got control of that channel. And you've got no IP in your sales process, no secret source, for that lead generation. Now, these lead suppliers, they may serve a purpose in the very early days. When you're trying to get a little bit of cash in the till. They may also serve a purpose later on in the business life, where you have a quiet week, a quiet month, and you're looking to get a bit of extra business in. But whatever business you're in, for me, sales, marketing, lead generation is such an essential function of that business. I mean, it is a be all and end all of any business. With no sales, marketing, leads, you haven't got a business. And to outsource that for a third party, to me, is a very, very risky maneuver. So, like I say, maybe if you find some lead suppliers where the quality of the leads isn't horrendous, maybe it's worth using them at certain points. But in the main, I would be looking to find your own ways for lead generation, and that can be like this, social media, advertising, referrals, word of mouth, whatever it is, but just a process that leaves you in charge of the lead creation. So that's that. Then when we come down, to what is Mitchell looking to do with the money, of this £7,500, he wanted £3,700 to buy some new tools. He wanted £1,500 to buy a new vehicle. He wanted £1,000 for some consumables, £250 for some leads, and then that left, I don't know, I can't do the maths, £500, £750 or something like that, cash in the bank. Now, going back to my original point, where I'm saying, I believe Mitchell should be waiting till he's in a position that he's got the £7,500 together, because that is going to have mean he doesn't need to take an investor on for 50%, and B, it's going to mean that he's spent more time honing his skills, furthering his knowledge, educating himself, getting himself in a position to get that money together. But that aside, if we're looking for creative ways to get this business off the ground, or for any of you guys to get your business off the ground when you're struggling for cash, when I look at these and say, well, look, you want to buy the tools for 3,700 quid. Why buy the tools in the initial stages? And this logic applies to many businesses, with many different tools, equipment, whatever it is that they may be looking to buy. And here we're talking about £3,700, but the logic's the same whether there's an extra zero, an extra couple of zeros on the end of there. Why raise the money on day one to buy these tools when he can rent them, dip his toe in the water, and again avoid the need to be bringing an investor on board? Morning, Carrie Ann. Thanks for joining us. If you've just popped in now, we are talking about whether or not your business is really investable, or whether or not you've just created a job for yourself, which may be a high income job but isn't investable for a third party. And secondly, do you really need the funding? And we're talking about this because of a business plan where a guy mailed me over the weekend looking to set up a carpentry window fitting type business, and he wanted £7,500. And what we've already discussed is, as I say, in the nicest possible way, if he hasn't got himself into a position to have £7,500 of his own, maybe it's too early for him to be doing this. Yes, when you haven't got money, £100 feels like £100 million. But to be able to build a business, run a business, requires a certain skill set, and if he hasn't developed that skill set, rather, if he hasn't got the £7,500, it's probably also likely he hasn't developed that skill set along the way. But we've just got to the bit now where we're talking about whether or not that £7,500 is even necessary, because of that £7,500, half of it, £3,700, he's looking to buy tools, £1,500 he's looking to buy a vehicle, and there's a bit of consumables and a bit of leads as well. So as we were just talking about, buying the tools, or buying any equipment, whatever business that may be, maybe you're a bar, and maybe you're looking to set up trying to give examples, maybe you're looking to set up a food truck. So all of these things, when you look at them one day and say, well, I need 50 grand to buy this equipment, or I need 20 grand for a new car, for a new vehicle, for a new car. Step back and say, do you really need that capital expenditure on day one? Can you reduce the amount of money that you need to put into the business by renting, by leasing, by borrowing, and again, you don't necessarily have to be renting it from a hire company, a third party. That there may be people who've already got the kind of equipment that you're looking to use who aren't using it, and you might be able to do some kind of joint venture with them. Maybe someone's got a food truck that they're not using. Maybe in Mitchell's case, he's got some mates who are carpenters who've got more tools than they actually need, and he can pull some of these tools together and get himself out of the blocks on day one. Again, he's talking about wanting to buy a vehicle for 1,500 quid. Again, this is something that could be rented, could be borrowed, just to get him out of the blocks. What else is on my little list here? But also, he's looking to be doing joinery business. Some of these jobs are probably going to be high value jobs. He's talking about kitchen fitting. He's talking about windows, conservatories, bifolding doors, all that kind of stuff. Are these things where he could be going to his customers and asking them to be paying meaningful deposits up front, deposits where he could then use that cash flow to go and buy equipment, to go and buy tools, etc. And I know we started this feed off talking about specifically a carpentry fitting business, but the key I'm trying to get across is that there's always more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to business finance. And people, I've rarely ever seen a business plan that actually asks for the right amount of money it needs. People either ask for too much or too little. Too little because they're being unrealistic, or too much because they're being overcautious or just not creative enough. And raising money is the hardest thing. I believe it's the hardest thing anyone will do in business. And if there's ways to make that easier for you, by reducing the amount of money you need and finding creative ways to do it, then not only is that going to make your life easier, but if you're looking for investors, it's going to make you be able to hang on to more equity in the business as well. I'm not going to talk about everything in this chat today, but we'll make some more of these out in the future. But people's immediate go-tos are, I need to go to my bank and I've been refused by the bank, or I need to find an investor. And when those two doors are closed for them, they've got no more ideas, and they think it's there's nowhere else to raise the money from. Okay, those two may be the most mainstream two, and they may be the easiest two if you are if you've got clean credit, if you've got a very investable business, if you've got an existing relationship with your bank. But if you haven't got any of those things and those doors are closed to you, there's many other routes out there to you. And one which obviously we're talking about today is how can you find creative ways to not need to make capital expenditure up front. So and then obviously the other thing we started talking about at the beginning of this was whether or not you've created an investable business, or whether or not you've just got a job for yourself. Now, Mitchell's plan as he grows this business is to add more carpenters on, who are going to deal with the leads that he's brought in. And yes, in theory, that sounds like he's growing a business, and he is. But really, where is the value? Where is the value in this for the investor? What's the exit route? Is there going to be a massive capital uplift in this building where the investor is going to be able to sell it for capital profit? Is the income going to grow year on year, where there can be distributions, dividends, etc., made to the investor? Personally, I don't really see this as an investable business. I see it as a job in the first place for Mitchell, and ultimately a slightly bigger job as his team grows out. But like I said, that is not to say that it's not something that suits him, that he shouldn't be doing, that can't make money. I think he can make himself some money. As I said earlier, I think he needs to be very careful about the lead sources, and a big part of his time and efforts need to be concentrated on how he can generate and control his own leads and sales process. But I think it's quite clear from looking at his financials, he can make himself a nice living. I just don't think it's a business that suits an investor. But as we've been talking about, I also think he's doing himself down by bringing an investor on. He offered 50% of the business away for £7,500. His first year profit is expected to be £30,000. So in theory, by the end of that first year, that investor is going to be entitled to 50% of that profit. And yes, on paper they may have doubled their investment. I know that contradicts what I was saying about this being an investable business. I'd be surprised if those numbers happen. However, if Mitchell thinks they are going to happen, why does he want to give 50% of that business away? £15,000 profit in year one for $7,500 up front. Delay the start of the business 3, 6, 9, 12 months. Delay it as long as it takes to have generated that money yourself, or find ways to reduce the amount of money you need, and find creative ways to get it. So I hope that makes sense. Over the course of the rest of the week and month, we'll talk about some other creative ways to raise finance, and what is and isn't important when you're raising finance and when you are looking for investors. So have a good morning, and I hope you find that useful. And as always, if you like my content, go and subscribe to me on YouTube. That's Matt Haycox, MatThaycox over on YouTube. Put a little comment below, like it, share it, or if you disagree with what I say, then again, put that down below as well. I always like a bit of constructive debate and criticism.